South Africa has been plunged into a state of shock and disbelief following the sudden death of President Cyril Ramaphosa. News of his passing spread like wildfire across the nation, leaving millions of citizens speechless and reeling from the loss of the country's sitting head of state. What was supposed to be an ordinary day in the country's political calendar has now been etched in history as a turning point that no South African ever expected. The silence on the streets of Johannesburg, Pretoria, and Cape Town was deafening, as citizens tried to process the gravity of the announcement. For many, it was more than the death of a president, it was the collapse of a figure who had, for decades, been a central player in South African politics. Flags across the country were lowered to half-mast as the reality of Ramaphosa's passing sank in. The Union Buildings, the very seat of his presidency, became the focal point of a nation united in grief. Crowds gathered spontaneously, some lighting candles, others holding placards with heartfelt messages. Social media platforms erupted with tributes, expressions of disbelief, and heated debates over what this meant for the country's political stability. For his supporters, Ramaphosa represented hope, reform, and a steadying hand in a fractured ANC. For his critics, he symbolized unfulfilled promises and a presidency often accused of weakness in the face of corruption and factionalism. Yet, in death, even his fiercest opponents admitted that the vacuum left behind would shake South Africa to its core. Inside the ANC, the atmosphere was one of panic and chaos. The ruling party, already battling deep internal divisions, now finds itself facing an unprecedented leadership crisis. The sudden absence of Ramaphosa has thrown the question of succession wide open, with factions already mobilizing to seize control of the party machinery. Parliament too was left stunned. Sessions were suspended indefinitely, with members from across the political spectrum paying tribute. Julius Malema, a frequent critic of Ramaphosa, was quoted as saying, "Politics aside, this is a day of mourning for South Africa. We have lost a leader, a father figure, and a man who carried the burden of this nation on his shoulders." The international community reacted swiftly, with world leaders sending condolences. Messages poured in from the African Union, the United Nations, and various heads of state across the globe. Many praised Ramaphosa's diplomatic efforts in African peacekeeping, his role in mediating global crises, and his tireless pursuit of investment and economic reform. The immediate question now facing the nation is, what happens next? The Constitution stipulates that the Deputy President must step in as acting president, but given the fractured state of the ANC, the succession battle promises to be anything but smooth. Analysts warn that South Africa is heading into uncharted political waters. With the economy fragile, unemployment at record levels, and social tensions rising, Ramaphosa's sudden death could trigger instability not only within government but also across the broader society. Even as the country mourns, debates over Ramaphosa's legacy are already in motion. Some remember him as the negotiator who stood alongside Nelson Mandela during South Africa's transition from apartheid. Others emphasize his presidency, marked by efforts to root out corruption while balancing between warring ANC factions. But today, the arguments fall silent. What remains is a nation stunned, united in grief, and searching for direction.